And the word that Jesus used that you and I will see in our English Bibles is I'm going to build my church and the gates of hell won't stand against it. And that little word church comes from a Greek word that maybe you've heard before. It's called ekklesia, and that word actually means gathering. The word church that we use all the time comes from, like in our culture that we use, comes from like 4 different languages translated and passed down to actually mean place of God or house of God. That's what we use. But the word that Jesus used, this word ekklesia, was a gathering of people. See, Jesus predicted a gathering. Jesus didn't predict a place. Jesus predicted a people. And he didn't say there was going to be a building over on the corner or there's going to be a cathedral at this intersection. He didn't predict any of that. He said, I'm going to build a growing gathering of people and nothing's going to be able to stop it. And they are in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, really? How are you going to do that? I mean, there's 12 of us. And if we're honest, Jesus, most of the people over there in the city of Jerusalem, they don't even like you. How's that going to happen? And yet that's exactly what he did. In fact, if you are a follower of Jesus, you are a fulfillment of that prophecy from 2,000 years ago. Now, here's the unfortunate thing that's happened in our culture, and maybe for you as well. The term church in our culture has come to mean a location. Even though that's not what Jesus predicted. In our culture, church has become nothing more than a place. You go, well, Shane, how in the world do you know that? Well, here's how. It's because we say things like this. I go to church. We also say, I went to church. Or we say, I didn't like that church. It sucked. In Jesus' day, if someone said that, it wouldn't have even made sense because it wasn't a location. It wasn't something that you went to. It wasn't something that you attended. It was something that you were a part of. Ekklesia. But unfortunately, because church is a location, church is a time slot, church is a weekend activity, we've kind of lost what it was that Jesus predicted and what the church was actually meant to be. When you open up the Bible and you read the parts written to the church, do you know what you find? Here's what you find. If you're taking notes, I hope you'll write this down. You find that the number one activity of the church was one anothering one another. Other than meeting and communion and singing and preaching, but when you ask the question, hey, what else did they do? Throughout the New Testament, almost 90% of it is relational. They one anothered one another. See, look at what it says. Take a look at some of these things. It says, look, they forgave one another. They forgave one another. Now, that's difficult. That's a hard thing to do. They accepted one another. They cared for one another. They encouraged one another. Submitted to one another. It says, bear with one another, which means you're going to meet some people in the church that you're not going to like. And you'll think they're wrong. And they'll think you're wrong. And then you'll think, I'm going to have to be in heaven with this person. We better bear with one another because we might be neighbors up there. Who knows? And then restore one another. You know what that means? That means that people in the church aren't always going to do the right thing. They're going to fail, they're going to sin, they're going to be inconsistent and lie, and we'll have to make a decision what to do with them now. And all through the New Testament it says, don't abandon them, don't push them out. God didn't push you out. You restore one another. Carry one another's burdens. And then look, the one that kind of drives all of the other one another's is the big one. It is love one another. What is church supposed to do? What is a church supposed to do? See, Jesus said it best when he said this. He said, by this will they know that you are my disciples if you attend No. Oh, if you sit in a row, if you sing along, if you give a little money. No, it doesn't say any of that. He says, here's how they're going to know. See, for every other religion, they're going to know if you just show up. Then they'll know that you belong to that group, but not for my followers. It's not a location. It's not a weekend activity. It's bigger than that. It's more attractive than that. They are going to know that you are my followers by how you treat one another. And Jesus says, this is what a big deal this is. If you have a relational challenge you haven't resolved or haven't even attempted to resolve, don't kid yourself by thinking, if I show up and sit in a row and sing some songs and hear a sermon or leave my offering, don't kid yourself by thinking you can have things right with you and God while you're still mistreating other people. Don't kid yourself. That's how it works in all the other temples and all the other religions, but not with my people, not with my gathering, not with my congregation. They are going to know that you're mine, not by how consistently you sacrifice, and not because you waited in line, and not because you showed up on time or you were late, none of those things, or even because you brought the right offering, but by the fact that you loved. And here's how he finishes this statement. Look at verse 25. He says, first go and be reconciled to your brother. Then come and offer your gift. You know, I think if Jesus was here today, I think he would make that so simple for us. In fact, let's just make it real simple. Here's how I think Jesus would say it today if he was here. Take a look. Go one another your bro before you sit in a row. I just think that's how Jesus would say that today if he were here. Go one another your bro. If there is some one anothering that you need to do, some loving, some forgiving, some restoring, some reconciling, you need to go do that first before you sit in a row and look so religious. He said, now listen, I know that's different, but this is my gathering. See, Jesus knew that in every religion, the pull was always towards, can I be fine with God? And it doesn't really matter how I treat you. I mean, me and God are cool, and I've prayed, and I've read my Bible, and I've dropped my $10 in. Me and God are fine, but I hate her. But that's different. I can love God and hate her, can I? And Jesus said, in all the other religions, sure. In fact, in many religions, you actually can offer your God a big enough sacrifice to get your God to actually do something bad to her. So you can actually kind of gang up with your God against her in all the other religions, but not my people. Not in my gathering. In fact, before you sit in a row, you need to go make peace with that person that you have unresolved conflict with, especially if it's your fault. And you're to blame, especially if you are the one that created the conflict. Now, my point in all of this is this. That's how relational that Christianity was intended to be. That's how relational following Jesus was designed to be. That's why the number one activity of the church is not this that we're doing right now. This is part of it. If this is all you've ever done, then you've just had a partial experience. But the true grit of the church is around one anothering one another.